Mining the Gold Within, Reclaiming the Value You Forgot You Had. Written by Daniel Eremesele. Dedication. To everyone who has mistaken neglect for emptiness. May you recognize what has been entrusted to you. Develop it with courage, and use it with wisdom. Contents. Introduction. The Treasure Beneath the Surface. Chapter 1. Why We Forget Our Value. Chapter 2. The Difference Between Worth and Performance. Chapter 3. Reading the Evidence of Your Life. Chapter 4. Removing False Labels. Chapter 5. Recovering Forgotten Strengths. Chapter 6. The Refining Work of Honest Growth. Chapter 7. Rebuilding Trust in Yourself. Chapter 8. Boundaries that Protect the Treasure. Chapter 9. Turning Inner Value into Useful Contribution. Chapter 10. Stop allowing others to set your price. Chapter 11. The Courage to be Distinct. Chapter 12. Living as a Faithful Steward of Your Value. Conclusion. Bring the treasure into the light. Introduction. The treasure beneath the surface. Many people spend years searching for evidence that they are valuable. They hope a title, relationship, income, audience, or achievement will settle the question. External progress can improve life and deserves responsible pursuit, but it cannot permanently answer a question that belongs to identity. When worth depends entirely on applause, every silence feels like rejection and every setback becomes a verdict. This book begins with a different premise. Your life already contains meaningful raw material. Your experiences, abilities, convictions, lessons, relationships, imagination, resilience, and distinctive way of seeing are resources. Some are visible, others have been covered by disappointment, comparison, fear, or neglect. The task is not to invent a false superior self. It is to recognize what is present, develop what is immature, heal what has been wounded, and direct your gifts toward useful contribution. The mining image is important because value rarely arrives ready for use. Ore must be located, extracted, examined, refined, and shaped. In the same way, natural ability requires discipline. Pain requires interpretation. Experience requires wisdom. Confidence requires evidence. A person can possess great potential and still live beneath it because possession is not the same as development. You will therefore find no invitation here to worship yourself or deny your weaknesses. Healthy self-worth is truthful. It can acknowledge limitation without surrendering dignity. It can receive correction without collapsing. It can celebrate another person without feeling erased. It can grow because it is secure enough to learn. Approach these chapters as both reader and miner. Pause when a question exposes something important. Write your answers. Test your assumptions. Speak with trustworthy people. Choose one area of value to develop rather than admiring every possibility. The treasure within you becomes beneficial when it is brought into the light and placed in service. Chapter 1. Why We Forget Our Value. The loss of self-recognition is usually gradual. A child expresses curiosity, creativity, confidence, or unusual interest. The response from adults and peers teaches the child what is welcome. Encouragement gives permission to explore, ridicule teaches concealment. Repeated often enough, these lessons become an internal rule. Show this part of yourself and you may lose belonging. Not every correction is harmful. Mature development requires guidance, restraint, and responsibility. The problem begins when correction attacks identity rather than behavior. There is a difference between, "This choice was unwise," and, "You are foolish." One identifies an action that can change, the other becomes a label that follows the person into new situations. Comparison adds another layer. Modern life makes other people's visible outcomes constantly available while hiding their preparation, support, timing, and private difficulty. We compare our unfinished process with the presented result. The conclusion is often inaccurate. Because another person shines, we assume our own light has diminished. Value can also be forgotten through over-adaptation. To survive a demanding environment, a person may become agreeable, silent, hyper-responsible, or emotionally distant. These responses may once have provided safety, but later they can prevent honest expression and healthy intimacy. A survival strategy should not be mistaken for a permanent identity. Recovery begins by distinguishing what happened to you from what is true about you. Experiences influence identity, but they do not have exclusive authority to define it. You can examine the messages you received, preserve the wisdom they contained, and reject conclusions that reduced your humanity. Mining exercise. List 5 early messages you received about your ability, appearance, voice, intelligence, emotions, or dreams. Mark each as helpful, incomplete, or harmful. Rewrite every incomplete or harmful message as a truthful, responsible statement. Chapter 2. The difference between worth and performance. Performance matters. Competence, integrity, preparation, and results affect trust and opportunity. Yet performance is not a safe foundation for human worth because performance changes. The strongest professional can become ill. The celebrated leader can make a mistake. The successful business can enter a difficult season. If dignity rises and falls with results, the person becomes emotionally controlled by the scoreboard. Separating worth from performance does not remove accountability. It makes accountability possible. When a mistake does not threaten your right to exist, you can examine it honestly. You can apologize without self-annihilation, learn without defensiveness, and try again without needing to pretend that failure never happened. Think of identity as the ground and performance as the harvest. Good ground still needs cultivation, seed, weather, and work. A poor harvest requires investigation, but it does not transform the land into nothing. In the same way, disappointing results call for learning. They do not prove that a person has no value. This distinction also changes ambition. Instead of achieving to earn permission to matter, you achieve to express stewardship, serve others, solve problems, and develop capacity. The energy becomes cleaner. You can pursue excellence without making success your master. Ask yourself what happens internally when you are praised and when you are overlooked. If praise makes you feel temporarily real and silence makes you disappear, your identity may be outsourced. The goal is not indifference to feedback. It is the ability to receive feedback without allowing it to determine your entire self. Mining exercise. Complete 2 columns. In the first, write, "My worth is not cancelled by," and list setbacks or weaknesses. In the second, write, "My responsibility requires me to," and list the actions needed for growth. Keep dignity and accountability together. Chapter 3. Reading the evidence of your life. People often search for hidden purpose while ignoring visible patterns. Your life already contains evidence, problems you repeatedly notice, work others request from you, situations in which you become unusually focused, and responsibilities you carry well. These patterns do not provide a complete destiny map, but they offer credible clues. Begin with moments of useful aliveness. These are not simply moments of pleasure. They are occasions when energy, attention, and contribution meet. You may feel stretched, yet the effort seems meaningful. One person experiences this while teaching, another while designing systems, caring for people, negotiating, repairing, organizing, creating, or interpreting complex information. Next, examine recurring affirmation. Compliments are not all equally useful. General praise can be pleasant but vague. Repeated specific observations deserve attention. You make difficult ideas understandable, you remain calm in crisis, or you see opportunities others miss. Ask mature people what contribution they consistently experience from you. Pain can also reveal value, though pain should never be romanticized. A person who has navigated exclusion may develop sensitivity to the overlooked. Someone who rebuilt after failure may understand recovery. The wound itself is not the gift. The wisdom, compassion, and capability developed through responsible healing may become part of the gift. Create an evidence file. Record completed projects, problems solved, responsibilities sustained, lessons learned, obstacles survived, and outcomes others can verify. Memory is influenced by mood. Written evidence provides a more stable account of growth. Mining exercise. Review the last 10 years and identify 10 moments when you contributed well. For each, record the situation, the ability you used, the people helped, and the result. Circle the abilities that appear 3 times or more. Chapter 4. Removing false labels. A label is a compressed story. Words such as lazy, difficult, average, weak, too much, not enough, or unrealistic can shape decisions long after the speaker has left. Some labels began as descriptions of one moment and became permanent identities. Others were placed by people who lacked the capacity to understand difference. Not every uncomfortable label is false. Sometimes criticism points to a pattern that needs correction. The task is discernment. Ask whether the label is specific, supported by repeated evidence, and connected to behavior that can change. You interrupted 3 people in the meeting, is actionable. You are impossible, is sweeping and rarely useful. False labels survive through confirmation bias. Once you believe you are incapable, you notice every mistake and dismiss every success as luck. You avoid challenges that could produce new evidence. The label then appears accurate because it has prevented the experiences that might disprove it. Replace labels with precise language. Instead of, "I am a failure," say, "This project did not produce the intended result, and I need to understand why." Instead of, "I have no confidence," say, "I lack experience in this setting, and I can prepare through smaller exposures." Precision restores options. New language must be joined to new behavior. Repeating a positive sentence while continuing the old pattern will not build trust in yourself. Choose actions that create evidence. Keep a promise, finish a task, practice a skill, ask a question, or set a boundary. Identity strengthens when words and behavior begin to agree. Mining exercise. Write the 3 labels that have limited you most. Identify their source and the evidence for and against each. Replace every label with a precise growth statement and one action that will create new evidence this week. Chapter 5. Recovering forgotten strengths. Some abilities were not destroyed, they were abandoned. Curiosity may have been crowded out by routine. Creativity may have been dismissed as impractical. Leadership may have gone quiet after an early rejection. Recovery involves revisiting these capacities without expecting them to return fully developed. Look at what you did before reward became the main question. What did you build, explain, organize, collect, imagine, repair, or perform? Childhood interests are not commands, and not every early passion should become a career. They are data. They reveal forms of attention that emerged before social calculation became dominant. Also examine strengths hidden inside responsibilities. The family member who holds everyone together may possess coordination, emotional intelligence, negotiation, and crisis management abilities. Because these skills were developed informally, the person may not recognize their professional value. Recovery requires experimentation. Take a class, volunteer for a defined role, create a small project, or return to a neglected practice for 30 days. Do not demand immediate mastery. Your objective is to discover whether interest, ability, and usefulness still meet. Give recovered strengths a present-day form. The child who loved telling stories may become a teacher, filmmaker, marketer, preacher, or organizational communicator. The original impulse can mature into many expressions. Honor the root without being imprisoned by its earliest form. Mining exercise. Choose one forgotten interest or informal strength. Design a 30-day experiment that requires no major life disruption. Set a schedule, a small output, a feedback source, and a review date. Chapter 6. The refining work of honest growth. Raw potential can be impressive and still unreliable. Talent may open a door, but character and discipline determine what happens after entry. Refinement is the process that turns possibility into dependable value. The first refining tool is truthful self-examination. Ask where your gifts are weakened by inconsistency, pride, fear, poor communication, lack of technical knowledge, or resistance to correction. This is not an invitation to shame. It is maintenance. Valuable instruments require calibration. The second tool is deliberate practice. General repetition often produces general improvement. Focused practice isolates a weakness, applies correction, and repeats at increasing difficulty. A speaker studies pacing and structure. A leader reviews decisions and consequences. A writer revises actual pages rather than merely reading about writing. The third tool is accountability. Choose people who respect your dignity enough to tell you the truth. A good mentor does not create dependence or demand imitation. A good mentor helps you see patterns, evaluate choices, and strengthen judgment. Refinement also includes rest. Constant pressure does not always create purity. Sometimes it creates damage. Sustainable growth alternates effort with recovery. Sleep, reflection, spiritual renewal, relationships, and recreation protect the person who carries the gift. Mining exercise. Name one talent you value. Identify one technical weakness, one character risk, one practice routine, one accountability relationship, and one recovery habit required to refine it. Chapter 7. Rebuilding trust in yourself. Low confidence is not always low self-esteem. Sometimes it is the reasonable result of broken promises to yourself. If you repeatedly announce goals and abandon them, your mind learns that intention is not dependable. Confidence returns when behavior becomes trustworthy. Begin with smaller promises. Choose actions within your control and complete them consistently. 10 focused minutes every day can rebuild more trust than a dramatic plan abandoned after 3 days. The size of the promise matters less than the integrity of completion. Keep promises specific. I will work on myself, cannot be measured. I will walk for 20 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, can. Specific commitments reduce negotiation and make progress visible. Respond wisely when you miss. Do not convert one failure into an identity or use compassion as permission for permanent inconsistency. Study the cause, adjust the system, and resume quickly. Recovery speed is a major form of resilience. Confidence also grows through exposure. Avoidance preserves fear because the mind never receives corrective evidence. Approach difficult situations gradually. Speak in a small group before a large audience. Offer work to trusted reviewers before publishing widely, or practice negotiation in low-risk settings before major discussions. Mining exercise. Select one promise small enough to keep for 14 days. Define when, where, and how it will happen. Track completion visibly. If you miss once, record the reason and resume at the next scheduled opportunity. Chapter 8. Boundaries that protect the treasure. Value without boundaries is easily exploited. A person who believes kindness requires constant availability may give beyond capacity, resent those receiving, and eventually withdraw from everyone. Healthy boundaries protect contribution from becoming depletion. A boundary states what you will do, accept, provide, or decline. It is not an attempt to control another person. You must stop calling late, tries to control. I do not answer non-emergency calls after 9, states your practice. Clear boundaries reduce confusion because consequences are known. Guilt often appears when boundaries are new. The feeling does not automatically mean the boundary is wrong. It may mean you are departing from an old role that benefited others. Evaluate the boundary by values, responsibility, and fairness rather than emotion alone. Boundaries also apply to your attention. Constant alerts, comparison, and unplanned access can fragment the concentration required to develop your gifts. Protect regular periods for learning, creating, rest, family, and spiritual life. Firmness should remain humane. Explain when explanation is appropriate, listen to legitimate concerns, and revise boundaries when circumstances change. Strength without compassion becomes rigidity. Compassion without strength becomes self-erasure. Mining exercise. Identify one relationship, obligation, or digital habit that repeatedly drains the energy needed for your priorities. Write a clear boundary, the respectful language you will use, and the action you will take if the boundary is ignored. Chapter 9. Turning inner value into useful contribution. Self-discovery becomes incomplete when it ends in self-admiration. Gold has social value because it can be shaped and exchanged. In the same way, your abilities become meaningful when they address real needs with competence and integrity. Contribution begins with listening. Do not assume that what you enjoy producing is automatically what others need. Speak with the people you hope to serve. Observe their frustrations, goals, constraints, and existing alternatives. Service requires understanding before expression. Translate strengths into outcomes. I am creative is an identity claim. I design clear visual explanations that help small organizations train staff is an offer. The second statement connects ability to a person, problem, and result. Test contribution at a small scale. Help one person, lead one workshop, create one prototype, publish one useful guide, or improve one process. Small service produces feedback. It shows whether the need is real and whether your method works. Charge responsibly when contribution becomes professional. Money does not corrupt value. Dishonesty and exploitation do. Price should consider the result, expertise, time, costs, market, and sustainability. Generosity can coexist with boundaries and sound economics. Mining exercise. Complete this sentence. I use my ability to to help achieve Then design one small service experiment and define the evidence that will show whether it was useful. Chapter 10. Stop allowing others to set your price. Other people will evaluate you through their needs, preferences, information, and incentives. Their assessment may contain useful evidence, but it is not an infallible measurement of your worth. A rejected proposal may reflect timing, budget, fit, or communication rather than absence of value. Knowing your professional value requires evidence. Document results, training, experience, demand, responsibility, scarcity, and the quality of your work. Research appropriate market ranges where possible. Confidence without evidence can become entitlement. Evidence without confidence can remain underpriced. Negotiate from clarity rather than desperation. Understand the value offered, the minimum conditions required, and the alternatives available. Ask questions before accepting assumptions. A respectful no can protect years of development from an arrangement that consumes capacity without fair return. Do not confuse every low-paying opportunity with exploitation. Some experiences offer learning, access, credibility, or service that justifies limited compensation. The question is whether the exchange is understood, voluntary, time-bound, and aligned with your priorities. Your deepest worth cannot be priced, but your time and professional contribution often must be. Treat both truths seriously. Refuse to make income your identity, and refuse to use spirituality or humility as excuses for disorder. Mining exercise. Create a value record listing 5 measurable outcomes you have produced, 3 uncommon strengths, relevant experience, and the conditions under which you do your best work. Use it to prepare for your next negotiation. Chapter 11. The courage to be distinct. The pressure to imitate grows when another person's success is visible. Copying appears safe because the path seems proven. Yet imitation without understanding produces a weak version of someone else and neglects the combination only you can develop. Distinctiveness is not forced eccentricity. It emerges from the intersection of experience, values, strengths, culture, questions, and chosen craft. Two people may work in the same field and still create different value because they notice different problems and communicate through different histories. Study successful people for principles, not personality theft. Learn how they prepare, position, decide, practice, and serve. Then translate those principles through your own responsibilities and audience. Being distinct carries risk. Some people will misunderstand a new direction. Others may prefer the version of you that was easier to predict. Do not reject all criticism, but do not abandon a responsible path merely because it is unfamiliar. Consistency makes distinctiveness credible. A single unusual idea can look accidental. A coherent body of work reveals perspective. Keep building until people can recognize the quality and concern that unite your contributions. Mining exercise. Write 5 elements that shape your distinctive perspective. Choose one topic or problem and explain how your approach differs, not because it is louder, but because it is more truthful to your experience and more useful to the people you serve. Chapter 12. Living as a faithful steward of your value. Reclamation is not a one-time emotional event. It is a way of living. You continue to notice what has been entrusted to you, develop it, protect it, and offer it responsibly. Seasons change, and the expression of value changes with them. Stewardship keeps self-worth from becoming self-centered. Your abilities are personal, but their fruit can be shared. A teacher multiplies understanding. A leader creates conditions for others to grow. An entrepreneur solves problems and creates opportunity. A caregiver protects dignity. A creator gives language or form to experiences others could not express. Stewardship also accepts limits. You are not required to pursue every possibility or meet every need. Focus allows value to deepen. Select the responsibilities that fit your season, keep your commitments, and release what belongs to others. Continue learning. A mature identity remains stable enough to change. New information may correct your self-understanding. Age may reveal strengths that were previously unavailable. Loss may reorder priorities. Growth does not betray the person you were, it brings earlier material into wiser form. Measure your life by more than visibility. Ask whether you are becoming truthful, capable, generous, disciplined, courageous, and useful. Public recognition may come or remain limited. The quality of stewardship remains within your responsibility. Mining exercise. Write a 1-page personal stewardship covenant describing the abilities you will develop, the values you will protect, the people you intend to serve, the boundaries you will maintain, and the evidence you will review every 3 months. Conclusion. Bring the treasure into the light. You do not need to manufacture a grand identity to justify your existence. You need the courage to examine your life truthfully, recover what has been neglected, refine what is undeveloped, and direct your capacity toward contribution. The work begins quietly, a false label questioned, an old strength practiced, a small promise kept, a boundary spoken, a piece of work completed, or a person served. These decisions may not attract immediate applause, but they change the internal economy of a life. You stop living as though value must arrive from elsewhere. Remember that worth and maturity are not the same. You possess dignity now, and you still have work to do. This combination protects you from both shame and complacency. You can stand securely while remaining teachable. There is treasure in your story, but treasure left buried cannot strengthen a community, build an organization, create beauty, solve a problem, or encourage another person. Bring it into the light. Refine it with patience. Carry it with humility. Use it well. A 30-day reclamation plan. Days 1 to 5. Review early messages and replace false labels. Days 6 to 10. Build an evidence file of strengths, contribution, and resilience. Days 11 to 15. Recover one neglected ability through a small experiment. Days 16 to 20. Begin a deliberate practice routine and keep one daily promise. Days 21 to 25. Establish one boundary that protects attention and capacity. Days 26 to 30. Test one useful contribution and write your stewardship covenant. About the author. Daniel Eramosele is an author, teacher, and personal development communicator whose work explores purpose, character, leadership, enterprise, spiritual understanding, and practical growth. His writing encourages readers to translate insight into responsible action, develop their capacity, and create visible impact through lives of service, excellence, and integrity. Copyright 2026 Daniel Eramosele. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, distributed, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without prior written permission from the copyright holder, except for brief quotations used in reviews or as permitted by law. This book is intended for educational and inspirational purposes. It does not constitute legal, financial, medical, psychological, or other professional advice. Written by Daniel Eramesele, First edition, 2026. We sincerely appreciate the time you have spent with us. We look forward to connecting with you again. Until then, remain blessed, continue exploring the treasures God has placed within you, and remember to listen to our other inspirational materials. We would be grateful to receive your feedback and hear how this audiobook has blessed, encouraged, or transformed your life. Please help us to like and subscribe to our channel to help us reach more people. Thank you once again.